We're having a stir fry today, and I'm going to talk about this briefly. I've already talked about it before, so I'm not going to mention much. And then I'm going to talk about these movies right here, and TV series. And I am very thankful I was given this, and it says that it's a fragrant blend of cinnamon, fennel seeds, peppercorn, cloves, and star anise. And many of you might recognize that as Chinese 5-spice powder, but brown sugar is not one of the spices in Chinese 5-spice powder, and there's other things in here, other ingredients. So as much as I am very thankful for this, because we were given this, I wouldn't buy it. Why put brown sugar in that? It says 5-spice powder. Put the 5-spice.
And what we might be covering, depending on the time, Air Voice. It should be called Airhead. By Carl. I don't know how they mispronounced his name. I suspect it's Hungarian, in which case it should be Rakosi. But accent on the first, but he probably mispronounced it Rakosi. New Directions paperback offering. And when I say offering, that's usually a term of disgrace. Another offering here. Rags 4. This is fourth in that line. A Journal of Creative Writing. Woo! From Lethbridge, Alberta. And then maybe a few offerings when Pauline has gone in or something like that, or is going in the philosophy book. Big ideas, like Nella Ayat does on her program on CDC. Simply explained, or simplistically unexplained, is probably more like it.
So this was on the top of the stack, Dr. Death, but I've already reviewed it, and it's the top of this stack too. Reacher Season 1 is the next one. I always put best to worst. And The Handmaid Tale Season 4, French Exit, and then Shakespeare and Hathaway. And
oh my God, Shakespeare and Hathaway? You actually watched that, eh? So that's Anne Hathaway, his wife. No.
Well,
correct?
It's not about that.
Oh.
But anyway.
Who would have guessed? He left his second best bed to his wife when he died in his will.
Yeah, I know that.
I don't know who he left his best bed to.
Reacher Season 1. So, this... I mean, the guy, he looks like really steroid, bigger neck than head kind of thing. But honestly, I kind of found him hot. Found him attractive.
She even called me over to the TV to point it out.
Check him out.
And
he takes his clothes off quite often in the show.
Or almost as much as Matthew, I don't know, what is his name? Channing Tatum or something like that? You got a bit of stuff on your lips there. There we go.
Chinese 5-spice.
Yeah, exactly right. But is it Channing Tatum or Tatum Channing? I think it's Channing Tatum. I think he's got a contract in his. He's got a clause in his contract that says, this is Channing Tatum. He'll take a little bit of money off if he gets to expose his hindquarters in a movie.
But honestly, I would watch this series faithfully. So keep putting it out. Because a lot of action, and there's enough story to tie it together. And even if there wasn't, they get him to undress often. So
early and often, that's like how the Republicans in the United States encourage their supporters: vote early, vote often.
Yeah. The Handmaid's Tale Season 4. James does not like this series at all. And honestly, I have a tough time with it. I'm, following June around. I'm like, oh gosh, at one point, a couple characters in this story here, in this season, they said anyone who tries to help June ends up on the wall. And that's right. Anybody. She's like toxic to everyone else. Although she did manage to get 86 kids out of Gilead, I guess. But anyway, so.
Gilead,
with the help of a lot of
Massachusetts,
people.
is it?
But, it's pretty much taken over all of the United States. So the U.S. had to pretty much seek out some help in Canada. And Chicago was fighting back at this point in the series, but it was losing. So anyway, so things are not looking good for the people trying to rise against Gilead. But I'm not going to give away what happens in this season too much. But honestly, it's really hard to relate to June, as like you don't want her to be a hero, because she's not much of a hero, honestly. Now, one thing that they mentioned in this, there was a part where one of the handmaids, they flash back and forth in scenes from the past before Gilead began, when it was still the United States and women had freedom and stuff like that. And so one woman, she's they show her going to an abortion sort of clinic or whatever, but it wasn't an abortion clinic, it turned out. It was they had wanted her to keep her baby, and so the woman was informing her of things like how abortion can leave women, and often leaves women infertile, because if they leave a little piece in, a finger or a toe, it can get infected, and then the woman can be infertile. And then she said something about an increased risk of breast cancer after abortion, and something else. I don't remember what. But in any case, she went to a doctor afterwards when she found out it wasn't an abortion clinic after all. She already had a child, a son that she was raising on her own, and she did not want to be pregnant at that time. And so she went to an abortion clinic, and the doctor told her, "I'm sorry you had to go through that with that other clinic. You know, there's a lot of Christian groups out there," she was saying, "that they give people misinformation, and that's not true at all about the risks of abortion." And all I have to say is, if you watch this right through to the end, which I put this on the top of the stack for a reason. Everybody needs to watch this Dr. Death. James and I were walking yesterday in the park down where we go feed the birds, and we met a very nice nurse who had been a nurse in Texas, and I wanted to ask her, "Oh, did you know Dr. Death?" You know, but I didn't, because she seemed nice. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Nice dog too.
Read the
That's not her, it's her dog.
Her dog was nice. Mm-hmm. Read the end. There's a bunch of statistics at the end of the series here. This is a little mini series, true story.
It's a little, but it's way too long. I had an incredible career.
Yeah. So read the statistics at the end, and then decide whether the ones that they were giving at the abortion clinic that turned out not to be an abortion clinic might be true.
In Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, in Handmaid's Tale. And I can tell you, when I was a teenager, I had 2 abortions. They were very close to each other. I couldn't have had more than one pregnancy, so I considered the second one just my daughter wanting to come back really bad. And I didn't want to have the abortion the first time, and I'm glad that I did, because I wasn't ready to have a baby. And I couldn't have raised her right. I'd wanted to have children later on in life, and that was pretty wise of me, I think. But anyway, so the first abortion, obviously I was still very fertile, because I got pregnant right away. And the second one, something went wrong. And
with the abortion,
my doctor gave me some painkillers. I didn't know what they were, but I think they were painkillers given. I was in quite a bit of pain. So afterwards I went to him and I'm like, something's wrong, this and that, and giving him my symptoms and stuff. But I knew something was wrong right when I got out of there. And they gave me Demerol while I was in there, which made me throw up. But anyway, I got home and I called my doctor, and I went to his office, and he said, well, I'm booked up, I can't get you in right away. And he gave me some pills. I didn't know what they were. I was a teenager, and I completely trusted the medical industry. And he was a great doctor. I really trusted him. And honestly, I think he was trying to help me by doing that. And I do believe that he did it on purpose. But he gave me some pills, and he said, well, I won't be able to get you in until, I can't remember. It seemed like a month later, but honestly, it would have been a week or something. You know, it wouldn't have been that long, but you know how teenagers are. It seemed like you date somebody for 3 days, and it seems like you've been with them for a month or something. But anyway,
How old were you at this point? 16?
No, I was 18 at that point, I think, at the second one, and 17 at the first. So anyway, so I thought I was younger, but then I found I'd saved the wristband, the hospital wristband. Anyway, so I was in a lot of pain, and I was taking these pills, and my boyfriend was not coming to visit me, and I was really upset. And I got Dad to drive me to the high school because I could barely be vertical at all, but I managed to track my boyfriend down, and I'm like, you gotta come visit me, you know. Anyway, it was a terrible time, and I got back in, and after that, I didn't get pregnant at all. Not at all. And then, I mean, I didn't know that I was infertile, and I kept taking birth control stuff. Not any better than I'd taken when I got pregnant. So that really not a factor. And then I took one birth control thing that was terrible, and it really wrecked me.
That was a pill?
It was an injection. And then I had some other very serious side effects. And anyway, I managed to find, after not years, decades of having major problems, I managed to find a gynecologist here. I went to emergency. I was hemorrhaging, and he helped me. But I mean, he'd already had cancer, and it's a big story about how the medical system really hooped us. They
mucked us over
like crazy.
I said M in front of the
So I'm very thankful to the gynecologist that helped me, but I mean, that sent me into a depression eventually because it was too late, you know. But anyway,
the way they treated you in emergency was almost national news.
Anyway,
it's in the news the last 24 hours. Some poor woman in Nova Scotia, I think she was a girl, went into emergency. 6 hours, they had her lying on the floor. Does that remind you of anyone's experience in the emergency?
I sat on the floor because I couldn't stand up for a while, but just when I was in the lineup to give them the... Yeah. But then I sat down, and there was a really wonderful woman. I don't know who she was, but she was there looking after her friend, and she was looking after me too, trying to, because I was falling asleep, you know. And
she lost a lot of blood. In other words, she'd been losing blood.
And I kept, you know, when the doctor saw me, then I didn't really want him to look, you know, because I was having a hard time not bleeding. You know, if I drank any water, then it'd just gush out as blood. And I didn't want the doctor to see. And then when he looked, I could hear splash, and I was sorry. You know, I was so embarrassed that I was hemorrhaging. And honestly, I don't want to talk about it yet.
Okay, sorry. But anyway, it happened.
But it happens. It happens. And if you think about it,
she survived.
A lot of the doctors that would be working on people, this is not just the United States. Like this Dr. Death, they're talking about the United States, and in The Handmaid's Tale, which is really fictional, they're talking about the United States turned Gilead, right? But if you think about it, a lot of people working in the medical system, there would be a lot of good people involved there.
Some.
But
He's being very generous.
But a lot of them, you don't know what their backgrounds are. A lot of them might be, say, Catholic, which nothing wrong with being Catholic, but what's their stance on abortion? Are they going to be giving abortions and maybe stuff like that? How does that make sense, right? It's not good for them, and it's certainly not good for the patient because they wouldn't want to be doing that. So what's the chance that they would think that a woman having an abortion deserves to have her fertility if she wants to have an abortion? That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm not trying to pick on just Catholics. Anyway,
there are a lot of fundamentalist Christians.
It's funny because when I was watching this Dr. Death, I was thinking about James and I hike in Waterton quite often, mostly in the summer because it would be very snowy right now, but we might go. But anyway, when I was watching this, I was thinking of a time when we met a nurse that from Pincher Creek, and she was a wonderful woman. And she had told us about, and at the time I was thinking about doing the vet studies because the Alberta government was funding like huge grants for people wanting to do vet studies because there's a shortage of vets here in Alberta. And so I was thinking of doing it, and then I met this woman because this is what happens in my life. My life, angels guide me and guide other people to me that I need, and I'm very thankful. I'm very lucky. So she came to us and she was telling us about how her dad was a vet and how he's an old school kind of vet, and he doesn't like the way that the vet studies have went to all this expensive equipment and stuff. The vets aren't trained to have the knowledge to do the work without the test, so they can't troubleshoot before they do the test kind of thing. She was talking about that, and she was talking about how her dad, who was a vet, he'd said that everyone who flunked out of the vet studies, they ended up going in to practice medicine on humans because I guess it was easier to get into practicing medicine, being a doctor, than being a vet.
My experience
so
is...
he didn't respect doctors at all, right? But she was a nurse, she was very nice.
9/10 of the GPs that I ran across were grossly incompetent. In other words, the kind of stuff they did or didn't do for me was actionable. It would have been actionable in any place that had any fair system of justice. You don't sue the doctor because you end up suing in Canada because you end up suing the Canadian Medical Association.
But we have heard from some people that have won. So maybe we
ran across one person.
I don't know, but we're both passive people. We're not the kind of people that would want to sue other people. We just want to be treated nicely. We treat other people nicely. We would like to be treated that way.
Exactly.
But in any case, watching this, if they've turned you down for a back surgery, watch this, and you might think twice about it anyway. My back was pinching today. I was lifting some groceries because we got good things from Salvation Army
and it
today.
wasn't that
very
much.
Thankful.
Yeah.
But for the most part, my back's been pretty good. If I don't lift things, pretty good. Then I can walk around. I'm doing great, and I'm very thankful. And after watching that, I'm very thankful that
This guy did back
I didn't get back surgery because what if I'd gotten that?
This guy.
You don't know,
There's
right?
lots of incompetence out there. My experience is 9/10, and when you get up around 10 samples, it's statistically significant. 9 or borderline, depending on how random the sampling is. And mine involved two different cities, and people trained many different locations. 9/10 of the doctors that I ran across, the 11th actually, well, it was actually 10/11, but we'll say 9/10, were, I like understating the case, just in case you think I'm being melodramatic, were grossly incompetent. They misdiagnosed me, in other words, they were figuring I was a hypochondriac, for 8 years, 10.5 months. And grossly incompetent. Those are GPs, I call them GMPs, general malpractitioners. And that's probably an understatement. I should probably be cussing my fool head off, but I try not to get involved. Incidentally, like vis-a-vis another thing that's been in the news, vis-a-vis what's happened to you when you were younger. There was it's coming out now that it might even be current, or relatively recent, maybe the last 5 years, but I think it's current. The occasional doctor, when he's dealing with an indigenous girl or woman and handing out an abortion, will just think he's doing her a favor by fixing it so she'll never have to have an abortion again. Yeah. So that might have happened to you.
I believe it, and I believe that's what happened to me. And I honestly,
because you were saying that
I still
before.
love the doctor, and that did that, and I honestly believe he was trying to help me. But that didn't help me. Yeah. It didn't help me at all. I'm still wrecked because of it. And I don't mean physically wrecked because the gynecologist picked me. I mean mentally. I mean, I'm still, you can see I'm still very upset. Anyway, the end of Dr. Death, when they're in the courtroom and the lawyers are doing the statements to the jury or whatever, and they're saying, don't blame this doctor, blame the system, one is saying, and the other one's saying, don't blame the system, blame the doctor. And it's like, no.
Blame both.
Blame both.
Yep.
Everyone along the line, like the guys in charge of passing this guy through, and everyone along the line should be held accountable. Yeah. It's ridiculous. So,
it's like the Catholic Church is responsible for the Christian Brothers, child abusers and stuff like that. But the child abusers have got to face their...
Yeah.
Got to have their day in court too.
Yeah. So French Exit. Last time we were talking a bit about. There was one movie that I introduced about seances and stuff like that, and this one was more interesting. But you'd expect. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer, right? And who doesn't love her? So anyway, it was okay. Actor, but as you could see, like I put it down near the bottom. It wasn't that great a movie. Yeah, but it was better than the ones that I'd watched last time that I said were in competition for the bottom. Shakespeare and Hathaway, Private Investigators. This is terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And this is season 4. I don't know who watched seasons 1, 2, 3 and decided that this should still, because honestly, the kind of people that are private investigators are not aggressive propagandists. They're not when I say aggressive propagandists, I mean on the disc model, they're usually considered the creative people, which they're not. They're not creative at all.
They're self-promoters.
And they're often considered to be really good at communications, which they are not.
No,
they are
self-promoters.
Look at me people. Yeah. That's all they are. They promote themselves. And so they don't listen. They don't listen to other people. Communication's a two-way street. They don't do that. So,
any more than they do, let's say, if they're actors when they're up on stage. Yeah. They're just projecting.
Yeah, exactly. So, and these characters are very obviously aggressive propagandists. So they are not believable as private investigators, and this is the worst. I like watching shows about private investigators. Honestly, I watched the Magnum PI recently, and I was like, yeah, Magnum PI. Whatever. I like this kind of stuff. Not this, though. This is terrible. I mean, when you have a private investigators, you expect somebody that might be believable as an ex-police officer. Or
aggressive, but not an aggressive propagandist.
No.
What do they call it? Aggressive ruler types or something like that?
Well, that's what I say.
Yeah. Well, that's probably better than the disc model interpretation. So you finished? Are we out of tape or stuff like? Oh, not tape. Battery. Okay. So what do I want to deal with first?
You have 4 minutes.
4 minutes. So New Directions paperback. It's not so new anymore. They've been around forever and on. This thing looks as though it might be 1969. Let's see what it. Oh, I was off by so much. 2 years. 1971. And you're thinking, wow, how could he forget yesterday? When did I finish this book? Half a year ago? 8th of July, 2022. So more than half a year ago. And 8th of July. So a little more than half a year ago. And it's just been sitting around waiting for me to review it. So New Directions paperback you can get, or you used to be able to get, I don't know if they're still in the business of publishing crap. Yeah, basically. A lot of Ezra Pound and stuff like that. So, and his first collection of poetry since Amulet, 1967, so 4 years before Carl Rakosi will say. That's probably the way he and his adulators mispronounce it. Well, he's probably dead now. Maybe died of embarrassment. Again, probes the minutiae of everyday experience. Minutiae of everyday experience from someone who's not that bright. You're going to get bored if you got any sort of sense and taste. Expressing, as one reviewer has put it, an attentiveness to the ordinary until the ordinary ceases to be so. That's right. It's extraordinarily boring. That's in capital letters. All caps. Exclamation point after and before. A la Espanol. But the poetic voice, wiser and more mature than what? I don't know. I guess more mature than it was 4 years before. Yet no less humorous or lyrical, now addresses itself with greater frequency to public issues. It's going to be mentioned the Vietnamese War, the war in Vietnam, probably. Nevertheless, Air Voice is not weighted exclusively with the poetry of social protest. It's anti-social protest. That's what it was in the late 60s and early 70s. And you're talking to a left-winger. What was happening, for example, Kent State, when they burned the ROTC building the day before 4 kids got shot, that's violence, You burn a building down, I don't care if it's a mosque, a church, or even like an army facility, like a Reserve Officer Training Center, ROTC Center. It's terrorism. For in his own words, Rakosi, a leading member of the objectivist group, that include, among others, Louis Zukowski. I've got at least one thing by Louis or Louis. Charles Reznikoff. I think I got something by him too. And George Oppen. I don't have anything by him. Seeks primarily to present objects in their most essential reality and to make of each poem an object. Oh, okay. So, you got 2 different kinds of objects. Objects outside the poem and objects in the poem. But the poem is so objective, it becomes the object itself, it looks like. Meaning by this, obviously, the opposite of a subject. Wow! The opposite, in other words, of all forms of personal vagueness. As though anything personal is vague. Like when Pauline talks about her experiences, they're not vague.